I'm just going to give a moment for folks to join from the waiting room here. Okay, just another second as folks are trickling in. Okay, great. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sarah Bassett, the MOQ1 Knowledge Manager, and I'm excited to guide you through today's session in our advanced webinar series. So whether you're just starting out with MOQ1 or looking to take your experience to the next level, this series is designed to give you the tools and insights you really need to thrive. Each week, we've been diving into powerful strategies, tips, and best practices to help you unlock the full potential of MOQ1. Today's session is all about designing for digital print. I'm excited to share how you can optimize your artwork to get the best print results possible using MOQ1's DIGISOFT print technology and improve your customer's experience along the way. So today we will be talking through DIGISOFT as a print technology, best practices and technical standards to consider when designing for digital print, and how to avoid common mistakes to ensure crisp, high-quality prints on every product. Lastly, we'll be going through tips for optimization for the look and feel of your designs with DIGISOFT. As always, we'll have time for a Q&A at the end of the session. So feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A section as we go, and I'll be sure to address them. I'll also be sending a follow-up email tomorrow with a recording of this webinar and some reference materials you can use while you're designing as well. Now, remember, this is just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, and we have 2 more sessions in this series, we'll continue exploring even more ways to optimize your experience with MOQ1. So let's get started and ensure your designs are ready for perfect prints. While most high-quality design files will print well with digital print, ensuring your file is formatted to our specifications will help you achieve the highest quality print possible. But what exactly is a high-quality file, and how can you align with our specs? I know not many of you are graphic designers in the crowd, and you may have limited experience with artwork overall. Some of you may be used to handling artwork, but mostly in the context of color-separated art and basically just transferring artwork over to a decorator. So in the simplest explanation, optimizing artwork for digital print means that backgrounds are transparent, so you don't end up with a big white square behind your design on a t-shirt. You're using the best file type for both print and mockup generation. The physical dimensions of the logo are consistent with our standard print size. The resolution or clarity is high enough to print clearly, and the colors used in your design will translate well to print. So our technical guidelines are to submit transparent PNG files that are 11 inches wide by 13 inches tall, 300 DPI resolution, and use sRGB color profiles with in-gamut colors. If your files are prepared in alignment with those recommendations, you're going to have a pretty stellar print result. We'll go into more detail about each of those recommendations in a little while, but first I really want to talk about Bespoke Labs production, DIGISOFT printing, and why maximizing your design quality can make such a big difference with this print technology. So we have operated within the world of product customization for nearly 3 decades, and we've maintained a focus on automation and consistency as we've grown to ensure that orders are produced at the speed and quality your customers expect. In 2021, we decided the print methods available in the world of print on demand were kind of lacking. Some were lacking in quality, others were lacking in scalability. So we started developing what is now known as DIGISOFT. DIGISOFT allows us to print designs more accurately, provides better print consistency, and better durability on any fabric than other decoration methods on the market. So as an example, let's take a look at this super complex DIGISOFT design here. I have this physical print with me, but my webcam quality is not going to be nearly as high as my camera quality. So I decided to take photos of these garments as well. But let's take a look at this one. So on the left, you'll see the design printed on a 100% polyester garment. On the right, a sweatshirt, which is a polycotton blend. As you can see, not only are the colors identical, but we're also seeing the same level of detail and vibrancy on both fabric types. And this enables a much better experience for not only shop owners and shop administrators, but consumers as well. When we launched DIGISOFT in the spring of 2022, our customer satisfaction exploded. Not only were people ecstatic about the vibrancy, design fidelity, overall print quality, they were also blown away by the consistent print results they were getting across all fabric types and the washability of the garments they received. However, we quickly realized that certain designs were printing just phenomenally, right? I mean, they were popping off every garment they were printed on. So through a series of tests, we were able to identify some tools for optimization that can help all designs pop off the garment. We've been honing those ever since. So let's dive into each aspect of the file recommendations that I reviewed a moment ago. And this way you can optimize your designs too. So first of all, we recommend submitting transparent PNG files for all artwork. While vector files like AI, EPS, PDF, SVG, those are all accepted. They can also cause issues with mockup rendering, and the mockup's not quite rendering accurately. So through expansive testing, we've discovered that PNG files actually print beautifully through our print processes. They also allow us to generate those mockups accurately as well. So while vector files also create great print results, there's much more of a technical learning curve with preparing them properly for digital print. So for best results, you can export the vector files you do have as PNGs at our recommended dimensions and resolution. So what dimensions? We recommend that your files are 11 inches wide by 13 inches tall. The MOQ1 system will automatically apply your design to all products. So it's super important that your design is sized to print on all products. In order to print properly, files should be 11 inches wide or 13 inches tall, depending on the shape of your artwork. So if it's super tall artwork, but it's really thin, just make sure it's 13 inches tall so that when we scale it up to the largest garment, we're not stretching those pixels out. And we'll get into that in a little while later in the demo as well. The dimensions of your file are determined by the tallest and widest points in your design that include pixels. And for those of you that are not graphic designers, pixels are just dots of color. If your design is smaller than recommended, changing the physical dimensions of the graphic outside of a vector program like Illustrator will not add more pixels. So in order to print it large enough, we're effectively just stretching existing pixels over a wider area, which is effectively going to degrade the design quality and reduce the resolution. So you can think of it like a swatch of fabric, right? As you stretch, you can see through it a little bit more because you're not adding more threads to the fabric. You're just stretching what's already there. Pixels are kind of like the threads that combine to build your design, and resolution is like thread count, right? So let's go through file resolution. So we print designs at 300 DPI. What that means is that for every inch of artwork, we are laying down 300 dots of ink. This is how we're able to achieve such crisp and vibrant prints. However, submitting artwork at a lower resolution can create blurry prints and fuzzy edges. So how do you check the resolution of your file, right? Open your file in a design program. So I have a demonstration here in Photoshop, but there are free online tools like Photopea or GIMP that have the exact same functionality. So you're going to open your design, click image, then image size. And this will show you all the physical dimensions, resolution, and pixel dimensions. If you check your file and it's not both 11 inches wide and 300 DPI, it's very possible you'll encounter print issues related to the file's resolution being too low. So in order to increase the resolution of your file, if you discover that it's subpar, you have two options. The first and preferred option most of the time is to go back to that source vector file, which is fully scalable and it's not tied to pixels or resolution yet when it's in that vector format. Then from there, you'll re-export it at 11 inches wide or 13 inches tall and 300 DPI. That will give you the perfect art file. Now, if your artwork is only slightly below our recommended specs and you don't have access to the original vector file, then it's okay. You may be able to just use a vector graphic program like Illustrator or even Corel Draw to trace the objects in the artwork and re-export the file at the correct specs. That's an option that we've seen a lot of folks use with success if the artwork is, again, only slightly below the recommended specs. And as we discussed when talking about file dimensions, changing the size of your design outside of a vector program, like those two examples, is just stretching out the pixels that are already there. It will reduce the resolution of your file and can negatively affect print outcomes. So as an example, I have printed a t-shirt, two t-shirts actually. The one on the left is using a high resolution MOQ1 logo. This one is 300 DPI. This is up to our specs, right? The edges of the logo are crisp and straight. However, the one on the right was uploaded to the system at 2 inches wide and only 72 DPI. To print it, we had to resize it to 11 inches wide, and that happens through an automated process down in our production facility. And again, that didn't add more pixels. So clearly the result here is pretty bad, right? You can see those fuzzy edges. For those of you that are watching on a computer, at the very least, it's pretty clear that that's a subpar result. And that's because every pixel that made up the original design when it was 2 inches wide was stretched to take up almost 6 times as much space when it was printed. We did have a question roll in just about how you know if a file is a vector file. So that PNG file type, well, let's back up a moment. So there are 2 different kinds of graphic images, 2 different categories, right? One is called a raster image. That one is tied to pixels. It has a specific resolution, and that one can't really be scaled as well. Vector files, on the other hand, are not tied to pixels, and they can blow up as large as you want them to. So the way that you can identify whether it's a vector image is really by the file extension that's at the end. So a PNG file is a type of raster file, and a vector image is something like a PDF, an EPS file. So they have different 3-letter acronyms. So you can identify it based on the file type that it actually is. I do have a question here that I don't quite understand. The 300 is to the edge. Why? If you could expand on that question for me, I would really appreciate it because I want to address your concern or your question, but I'm just not quite sure exactly what you're asking. So in the meantime, I am going to, that's just the way I folded the t-shirt. I'm sorry, Zach or Jack. This is a folded, I have the physical garment here with me as well. It's just the way I folded it. You can see it's a full-size t-shirt, so it's just a little bit of a variation in my folding technique, unfortunately. Okay, so let's get into color a little bit here. So we prefer sRGB color profile and in-gamut colors. So let's back up a little bit. When a screen printer is printing a design, they grab a specific ink color that corresponds with the colors used in your design. In digital print, we use a very different process. So digital printing uses print heads, kind of like an office printer, which combine cyan, magenta, yellow, and black inks to create a wide range of colors. However, not all colors can be created using this process. So most notably, neon colors are generally outside of the range of achievable print colors, or in design terms, they're out of gamut. So I do want to make a note here, just a moment. A lot of talking. The CMYK inks are standard with digital print. We are in the process of making an optimization in our production facility that's super exciting. We will be adding orange and green inks into our print heads to expand to a 6-color process. So that's going to expand the number of available print colors that we can achieve here. So we're really excited about that. I don't have an exact timeline for when that's happening, but it is very exciting. So with color, it's most important to begin with the end result in mind, especially when selecting design colors, right? Designs that are being uploaded to MOQ1 will be printed digitally, which again means they should be created using those in-gamut sRGB colors or CMYK colors. But what's the difference? Put simply, RGB colors are from a wider color spectrum than CMYK colors. So RGB colors use light to create their vibrancy, so they're not always achievable in print. CMYK colors, on the other hand, are always achievable in print, but may appear more muted on screen. Because of the process we use to translate images to print, we actually recommend using in-gamut or printable sRGB colors for the best result both on screen and on your printed products. If your colors are not in-gamut, which really, again, just means print safe, it's not the end of the world. But it's worth noting that the color you see on screen won't be perfectly representative of the printed color because we're not adding light down there in production as much as we would like to. So I just also want to make sure on the topic of color that I make a note here. I know that many of you are used to Pantone color matching, but unfortunately, because we're using a digital print process, we're not really able to offer a Pantone color match because we're not going to grab that ink off the shelf when we print the garment. It is possible we'll be able to provide something like a Pantone color library in the future, which would essentially be a library of hex code equivalents for the most commonly used Pantone colors. However, the process of Pantone color matching is pretty intensive with digital print. And for those of you that are familiar with Pantone colors, there are thousands. So we want to make sure that we do this on an as needed basis and we provide only the most common colors. And we're not really able to offer that as a service right now. But for your clients that have requests for particular Pantone colors, I highly recommend submitting their file for print and just presenting them with their sample. In our experience, the color is acceptable to the vast majority of clients, despite not being an official Pantone match. Just want to review a couple questions here just to make sure I'm not skipping anything that is super relevant to what we are talking about now. And I think a lot of this stuff, let's cover this in the Q&A so far. I will keep checking in just to make sure I'm not glossing over something that's super important to you guys. But let's move on here. So you're meeting all the design specs already. How do you level up? Let's go through some special design considerations here. So one would be adding some transparency into your design to create a softer hand feel. Now, in order to achieve maximum design vibrancy, the inks used in digital print methods like DIGISOFT sit on top of the garment, which is the goal for all print methods in order to achieve that vibrancy. As with most other print methods, the larger the area of ink, the more prominent the print will feel on the garment. And because DIGISOFT does such a great job of sitting on top of the garment, certain designs using super large areas of solid color, like maybe a full square or full circle totally filled in with ink, may feel a little bit heavy. However, there are some ways you can optimize designs for DIGISOFT that help soften the hand feel from the beginning. The first suggestion we make is to inject some transparent elements or negative space into the design where possible, so the design itself is not one large area of ink. So this design is a great example, right? We have the mountain outline where we could be filling that in with brown or gray in order to make some large solid mountains. But by utilizing these finer lines and negative space, you end up with a really soft print and a lot of detail. Another special design consideration is to make sure you're using 100% opaque design elements. And that means avoiding things like drop shadows, glows, and smoke effects. Some of you may be thinking, I'll just make my design a little translucent, right? Reduce some of the opacity. It'll reduce the amount of ink you put down, but it doesn't quite work that way. So in order to ensure the most vibrant colors, we need you to make sure you're using 100% opacity in your design elements. DIGISOFT uses a base layer below the pigmented ink we use to both make it pop and help your print bind to the garment to last as long as possible. When there isn't enough pigmented ink laid on top of that base layer, which is determined by your opacity, 100 is 100% ink, you may experience muddier colors. So if you reduce that down to 30, we'd only be laying 30% of the color that we think is appropriate there. So stick with 100% opacity for full vibrancy. However, if you want to fade certain design elements, you can use halftoning. Many of you are familiar with halftoning through screen printing. So you can create that fade effect at the edges of your designs by opting for halftones. Halftoning uses 100% opaque dots of color that reduce in size and density as they move further away from the main design elements. So here's a great example. As you can see, we're getting that fade effect from the lightning bolts while keeping everything 100% opaque. I also wanted to include print examples here on both black and maroon t-shirts, so you can see how cleanly DIGISOFT translates designs from one color garment to the next. So lastly, if you want to create a distressed design, this is a really cool technique that we have seen utilized really, really well within the DIGISOFT print technology. So you can distress a garment or distress a design with a background color behind your design. So adding a white background layer, for instance, behind your design elements will help you achieve kind of a scuffed appearance without compromising print quality. So some of the more traditional distressing techniques will leave a lot of pixels that are semi-transparent. So you might end up with like some cloudy printed colors inside those, you know, the water in the canoe, how that's all distressed out. That may not look quite as clean if you use a more traditional or less cleaned up version of distressing. So really quickly, I just want to go through some upcoming design related features. I know we'll have questions related to a lot of these topics. I know some of them came through, so I want to wait to address your questions before I go through this section or after I go through this section. So we are working to add several additional print presets that will allow you more control over the size of your artwork. Currently, we are offering full front, left chest, and full back. However, we are working to expand to offer 3 different front print sizes, which would be small, medium, and large, left and right chest, back yoke, and those full back print locations. We know there's a lot of interest in sleeve prints also, but this one is a little further down our roadmap. It'll require additional mock-up images and new production processes. So we want to be sure we're able to maintain incredibly fast fulfillment and provide a positive front-end experience to your customers when this one is added. And again, while this next one is a little further down the road, we are also incorporating feedback from all of you to add design tools into the platform itself, so you can create, edit, and optimize designs all within MOQ1. One final design-related optimization that's coming down the pike is to lock a design to a specific design location. So for example, many of you want to upload a design and have it only available on left chest. We want you to be able to do that. The current process for achieving that is to build featured products for that purpose, but we want you to be able to use the power of automated storefront creation and work within those limitations, or the limitations that you have for design placement within that system. So the information included in this presentation is meant to help you achieve the best print results possible, and designing for digital print is actually pretty easy. But hopefully now you feel like you can take advantage of the print quality of DIGISOFT through fully optimized designs. Okay, so let's hop over to the Q&A. I know several questions have rolled in through the presentation, so let's take a look here. So let's scroll up to the top. I have a question regarding the products that are available for the store. Who should I speak to? So Michael, if you could email us at support@moq1.com, we can go over your specific questions for sure. Another question here. So most likely I have uploaded poor quality or poorly sized art files. I understand we cannot delete files from the site, but I can make them inactive. So how do I evaluate those files and make sure that I replace them? Ralph, I would be more than happy to work with you on that. Our support team would be happy to work with you on that. We can evaluate the files one by one and make sure that they are the quality that we need to produce a great result. Why is a PNG preferred over an EPS file? So Nicole, this is a great question. And in order to answer it properly, I need to help you guys understand that we have a really wide variety of folks using MOQ1. Now, everyone exists within the promotional product space, but many are decorators that are used to handling artwork. Many are sales reps that are used to passing artwork from one place to another. And store building and artwork evaluation is a totally new process to them. So with particular vector files that folks are used to handling, oftentimes they include tags, registration marks, basically instructions for the screen printer on how to align them properly. Our system reads those instructions. However, they also display on the mockups. So if your file includes registration marks, has notes about turning 90 degrees, your mockups aren't going to look great or the way that you intended. So for folks that are really used to those file types, this seems easy, right? You can absolutely upload an EPS file. There's no problem with that. However, in order to make sure that we are steering folks in the right direction, the vast majority of the time, we prefer PNGs because we are not seeing any reduction in print quality when PNGs are used, and we're able to accurately render those mockups all the time. So that's an answer that I hope makes sense to you with the context of the wide skill set of people that we have using MOQ1. How different is print quality between sRGB versus a CMYK file? So one of the big differences with sRGB versus CMYK is that certain file types will allow you to use certain color profiles. So CMYK, you can export if you want a transparent background, you can't use a PNG file. You're locked into particular file types. So a CMYK file will produce fine print quality. We're not going to have any issues there, but it's going to be a little less vibrant on screen, and you're not going to be able to utilize a PNG. So I hope that answers your question, Ralph. I was late, so you may have covered this, but if we have vector art, does it matter what size it is? Can art be in Pantone colors, or do I need to convert to CMYK? So Bobby, we would prefer that you export as a PNG in sRGB. If you are using in-gamut colors, that's our preferred process. It is important that when you export and rasterize that image, that it is tied into the correct dimensions and DPI and things like that. If you're uploading vector art, you can upload it as is. Obviously, it's not going to be tied to any dimensions. We're going to scale it appropriately for the print that we are producing when we pull that art file. So you can absolutely submit those. On the topic of Pantone, I hope that I covered the Pantone information. I know this one came in about 10 minutes ago, this question. We are not able to offer Pantone color matching at this time, but we're considering creating a Pantone equivalent library so we can provide hex equivalents for certain Pantone colors, because we're using digital print processes here. So we're combining 4 inks rather than pulling an ink off the shelf to make sure that we can accurately produce it. So our preferred process for you, if you have a client that's insisting on Pantone colors, just go ahead and print them a sample. The vast majority of people are going to be totally satisfied by the print result that's achieved with DIGISOFT without going through any complex color matching. So I hope that helps a little bit. What if we want a design to be a specific size? So for example, a 6-inch wide print. So Dennis, this is actually why we are moving into the world of multiple front presets. Our goal down the line is to allow you to upload your artwork, lock it into a particular size, turn off scaling. So we're not changing the size on a size small as compared to a size 2XL. We want you to be able to have that control. Unfortunately, that's just a little bit further down the line. So we want to make sure that we incorporate these additional print presets in the meantime so that we can accommodate a 6-inch wide print, for instance. So yes, we definitely see the need for that. It's just not something we're able to accommodate at this time. What about matching hex colors? So the hex color, we will be able to match as long as it's an in-gamut color for sure. You can enter that in your design program. And as long as it is not an out-of-gamut color, we'll be able to match it, no problem. Oh, and Bobby, I saw your follow-up saying I answered your color question. I'm sorry, I didn't see that quickly enough. A full large block of ink feeling heavy, like literally. No, not literally. It's not going to like weigh down the shirt or anything, but it has more of a presence on the shirt. And this is the same with screen printing. You know, I have a screen printed garment that I bought for a fundraiser that has a large oval on the front of it, and it's just more present, right? It doesn't feel like it's part of the t-shirt. When you incorporate those areas of negative space, it really does move with the t-shirt perfectly, and you can't feel any stiffness, I guess is probably a better way to describe the heaviness, is stiffness. We have a question about specific halftone effect recommendations. If you can reach out to me or respond to my follow-up email, I will get those from our graphic design team. I don't want to rely on my memory and state it incorrectly for you here. So if you can reach out to me, that would be super helpful. My email is sarah@MOQ1.com, and I will be sending a follow-up email from my personal email. So you can respond and we'll get you those details. Do you offer any kind of art services? So we provide logo details and info to you. You would provide a cost estimate and create print ready files. So we are not in the business of logo design at the moment. We've considered this as maybe a service we could provide in the future, but we're not equipped to handle a wide variety of requests in that department right now. So it's not something we can accommodate. We are happy to help you optimize existing files and make sure that they're in line with our print processes. But on the design side, it's just not something we're able to offer as a service. Are there design templates available specifically for items where my client may not want a blank area behind their logo? So I think, Ralph, you're speaking specifically to sublimated items, and we are working on providing printed background colors that you can apply. Essentially, the reason that we don't create or allow templates for our sublimated items at this time is because there is a lot of margin for error when folks are utilizing these templates. And we are dealing directly with your customers. We're providing the customer service. And without the control over the artwork placement that we provide in our automated processes, we just might not be able to help the customer get what they need, right? So we would have to reach out to you, have the artwork redesigned, all of that. Whereas the way that we're creating artwork right now, we're making sure that your logo is inside all safe areas automatically. So we want to be able to have you print a color behind your logo, for instance, on our hats, but that will, at least at first, be a background color related thing. Rochelle has another question about specific halftoning techniques. So Rochelle, you know what, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to include specific halftoning recommendations in my follow-up email. I should have thought about that before asking you to reach out directly to me. So I will include those so that everyone has the same information. Just writing this down so I don't forget to follow up with you. Okay, if you are creating vector graphics in Illustrator, are they automatically 300 DPI? So that's a great question. So vector graphics are not tied to pixels. DPI stands for dots per inch. In a design program, it might say pixels per inch. DPI is more common in print. Pixels per inch, or PPI, is more common in design. So vector graphics are not tied to resolution or design size in the same way that raster graphics are. I know that's like a little bit down the rabbit hole of design, but essentially the answer is they will automatically be the right size and the right resolution as vector graphics. So you don't have to worry about anything like that. If you submit them to our system, you should expect a good print result. Are you able to adjust the commission structure? So this is a little outside the topic, but I'm happy to address it. So the commission structure of MOQ1 sites is that you will receive 30% of the sale price of every item in your shops without making any pricing adjustments. So the example that I like to use, the G500 t-shirt or the Gildan 5000, the list price for that is $17.95. That includes all print fees, everything, that nothing is going to be charged to you, but $5.38 of that sale price goes directly to you. We do not allow you to reduce your commission, but you can absolutely add margin to any product in the catalog or the catalog as a whole. So Chris, I encourage you on Tuesdays, we have an overview webinar where I go through the system and I talk about things like making modifications to pricing, to your product catalog, all of those things. We hold those also at 1 p.m., but they're on Tuesdays. So you can find a link to that on the home.moq1.com website and go ahead and register. And I think that's a great place for you to see that overview as well. Questions about who to contact for review of art files. So Ralph, you can just email us at support@moq1.com and we'll make sure that the proper teams are reviewing that ticket to get our support team the information that they need to convey to you. Is there a way to fully delete a design that was not working out so we don't get confused between old and new artwork? So Rochelle, we are working on that. So the reason that we are currently limited to excluding versus including designs is because we need to make sure that any designs that are deleted are not tied to any reporting or print processes, right? So if you create your storefront with a particular file, and then a customer orders that product with your art file, and then you delete it, we don't have access to an art file, and we end up with customer money and refund situations and all of that. So we want to make sure that we have a good process in place for when an item or a design is deleted, that we're ensuring it's not related to anything important in our fulfillment or reporting systems. From a client, we both feel that the smaller shirt, so this is the print on the smaller shirt is going to be way too big. Can you adjust the size or the image size? So Jack, this is related to the multiple output sizes that I spoke about as an upcoming feature. So we are hoping to be able to implement that really soon to have a small, medium, and large size output. And we would share the output dimensions, obviously, with everybody. The most commonly requested output sizes that we have are 11 inches, 9 inches, and 7 inches. So it's very likely that we'll align fine with that. That's not set in stone just yet. So if you have specific output sizes that you use in your business, if you're a decorator or you're just used to having specific outputs as a promotional product dealer, please reach out to us with those. We would love the feedback, and we're always open to incorporating that feedback into our processes. Should I always start my design with an 11 by 13 size page? So yes, that is the best way to start. If you create your canvas at the correct dimensions, then when you export, it's already going to be the correct size. You don't have to make any modifications, and any graphics that you drop into that program are going to be sized appropriately. Thank you, Bobby, for the compliment. Always a pleasure chatting with you too. And we do not yet have an ETA on the back yoke position. So I was speaking with our production director yesterday about the host of design presets that I mentioned previously, and he wasn't able to give me one as much as I want to convey one. I will let you know as soon as I have more information on that so you can know when to expect it. Is there anything special we need to do using a gradient inside a graphic? So if you are using gradients from one fully opaque color to another fully opaque color, no restrictions whatsoever. We just want to make sure if you are using a gradient, you're not producing a gradient from one color to fully transparent, because that's when this area in here is going to be all reduced opacity and you'll get those kind of muddier colors. We don't love that print result. Most consumers don't love that print result. So we just try to steer you clear of it. But again, if you're creating a gradient inside a graphic and the area is fully opaque, no restrictions whatsoever. Currently, the default is for you to scale the size of the print based on the size of the graphic. So yes, that's absolutely correct. We will scale the output size so that the print most closely resembles the mockup. So our output size on size large is going to be 11 inches wide. It's going to be about half an inch smaller on a size medium and a half an inch smaller than that on a size small. So we make sure that your customer, when they're looking at the mockup and making their purchase, the item that they receive resembles that mockup as closely as possible. So obviously with, plus size garments, we may not be able to achieve that just because of print size limitations, but we do our best to make it the case in as many sizes or for as many sizes as we can. And Jack, Sarah is with an H. And again, you'll be receiving that follow-up email from me. So if you want to take the opportunity to email me proactively, absolutely feel free. But there's no pressure to make sure you get my email correctly at this point, because I will be reaching out to you as well. Okay, just a couple of comments here. Rolling through. Will an all-white design in CMYK print fine? Yes, absolutely. Don't worry about all white. White is white. It's going to print super vibrantly. Unfortunately, I don't have a fully white. Oh, I do have a fully white print example here. I'm going to turn off my screen sharing for just a moment so you can see full size. So this one was a transparent PNG image, but the white is white for the most part. So you don't really have to worry about the color profile if you have just a solid white image. Is there an ETA on being able to add a custom banner? So Rochelle, I think you're referring to on the storefront, creating a banner with your branding or your customer's branding. That is our developers' #1 priority right now. It's tied in with a couple of other storefront optimizations. So I don't have an exact ETA right now, but we will be very, very vocal about that. Our goal was to ensure that feature was available during Q1. It may be moving a little bit into Q2, but we're hoping to get it live as soon as possible. We know that storefront customization is important to everybody. We just want to make sure that we have it tied up and in optimal functionality before we make it live. Okay. Okay, just a couple more comments. You're welcome, everybody. I'm glad I was able to address your questions. If anyone needs designers, maybe you can have a place they can find some to work with that use MOQ1. That's a great suggestion, Emma. Emma, by the way, who was in the crowd today, came up with another really great optimization tip for us on one of our Tuesday webinars that our developers loved so much, they implemented it same day. So Emma, I'm definitely taking that feedback back to the team because I think you're keyed in to some needs here. Okay, when we open up a customer store page online, it seems to open the storefront with shirts randomly full chest and left chest. So that is exactly how it works, Bobby. So the storefront product display is controlled by what we internally call here the randomizer. That's just a loving nickname for it. We have not marketed or come up with a marketing term for that technology yet, but essentially what we're doing, we are displaying products in order of product popularity and creating a random display of your color variant selections and your included designs. And your included designs may be displaying as left chest if they're available as left chest. If the garment itself is restricted to only left chest, so for instance, if it's a polo, we're not going to be able to print it full chest because of buttons and things like that that'll be in the center. So we will display with whatever print locations are available. So also, you can actually restrict your designs to only displaying on the backs of garments. And that's something that you'll notice in the storefront as well. So if you have a particular design that's only available on backs and you've excluded fronts, it's only going to show the back mockups. So I hope that gives you a little bit more context, Bobby. But as always, you can reach out to us, Mike or I or Eric, any of the team will be happy to go through that with you. Okay, questions are slowing down. I hope that's because we've adequately explained design in this webinar. I do have one more question here. If we send a graphic that we want to print out at 9 inches wide, can we leave 2 inches on either side blank? So unfortunately, that's not something that we can accommodate right now. So we trim excess transparent space within our uploader, but we are working to allow you to essentially tell us to use the exact artwork. Again, that's a little bit further down the line. That would be something that we're able to release at the same time as our design tools that we're working on. But we do understand the need for that, the desire for that, and we're working to provide it as quickly as possible. In the meantime, as I mentioned, we are also working to provide those small, medium, and large size outputs. So if you wanted a 9-inch wide logo, you would be able to lock your design in to that medium sized output. So I hope that is helpful, and I hope we're able to release that ability as quickly as possible because we know that that's what folks want. So I hope that is helpful. Okay. Okay. I want to thank you all for your time. I know we have about 18 minutes left. So if you have any additional questions that roll in while I'm saying goodbye, I will absolutely address them. But don't feel like you need to rack your brain. Again, I will be following up after this. It will most likely be tomorrow because this is a longer webinar. It may take longer for Zoom to render the recording, but I will email this out to everybody, some tools related to design, some reference materials, and again, details about the half toning and the specifications that we recommend for that process if you implement it in your designs. So if any additional questions pop up for you after we sign off today, please feel free to respond to that email and I can provide you more information about any topic. Off topic, but is there a way to see just the page views of each store? Yes. So Emma, if you select that particular store and go to the dashboard for that store, so that may require turning off your onboarding, you'll see a dashboard that will have page views, conversions, your commission for that shop that is particular to that user, and the total sales. And that is for just the month. However, if you go into the reporting section of that particular store and export the traffic report, traffic by date, I believe, then you will see the traffic for just that shop. If you're a shop admin and you view that at the directory level, you're going to see an aggregate of all of your shops. But if you go into the particular store, you'll see the data for just that shop. Okay. One last thing, just before I say goodbye, I want to encourage everyone to join our MOQ1 Facebook group. So I'm one of the admins over there. We also have several account reps that are in that group who can help field questions. But the most valuable part of that group is that it's populated with other MOQ1 users like you. So there's some great conversations that happen there about how folks are implementing this into their processes. And it's a great place for troubleshooting as well. So I'll also include the link to that group. So that I'm not just spouting off a URL to you. And please join after this webinar, after you receive the email, and we can continue this conversation. So again, thank you so much for joining this webinar series. We have 2 more weeks to go, 2 more topics, And I'm excited to meet with you all next Thursday, hopefully. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.